Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So Craig certainly didn't honor my request not to read that full bio, but Craig, thank you for that wonderful introduction. Thank you to your president and the head table. I certainly appreciate the invitation to share what we've been working on at the SBA. I've been on that side a few times as a guest here, but honored to be your speaker this afternoon. Earlier this year, has been a year of surprises for me. Not just accepting this role, but this year I have been invited to give the commencement exercises at two schools that were the direct rivals of my school. So this year, I gave the graduation address at Capitol High, and as a McKinley graduate, I had to fight my way in, and hopefully, I got out of there. And then earlier this year, I was also blessed to give the commencement exercise at Grambling State University. And of course, I'm a proud Jaguar, so I did wear the same blue and gold tie that I wore to Grambling here with you all today. So I say all that to say that it is indeed an honor to stand before such a powerful group in our community. I want to do several things with my time with you today. Number one, kind of give you high level, because I know many people, some of my friends that are here, former colleagues, Senator Franklin Foyle, Judge Erica Green, Councilwoman Shauna Banks, and so many community leaders, but I have to shout out the elected officials for all of the work and the sacrifice that you put in every day, especially you, Franklin. I hope you don't get called back to a special session while I'm talking. But I know that, you put in a lot of work over the past, 4 or 5 months. But one of the things that was very consistent after the congratulations, what people said, okay, now what is it that you are going to be doing? Because not many folks have met a previous SBA regional administrator, me included. So I will give you all just a brief description of my role and just the SBA landscape. And I will tell you, it has been to my detriment that I didn't have a very strong relationship with the SBA during my 10 years in the Louisiana legislature, because we could have done a lot of work in the small business community and the small business ecosystem across the state had I had a better relationship with the SBA and the SBA regional administrator, thus the importance of me being here communicating to you all. So as Craig mentioned, I am the regional administrator for Region 6. There are 10 regions across the SBA with 68 district offices. Region 6, our region, is the largest geographic region in the SBA. In my region, I have the largest number of district offices at 10. District 4 that has Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas, they have 9. So we are the largest region geographically, and with the number of public servants that have been working extremely hard to help the small business ecosystem. We quite simply are the voice of our small business community. We aid, counsel, and assist small businesses no matter where you are in your journey. If you are just getting started, if you are looking to scale up, or you are ready to embark upon the opportunity to do work with the federal government. Throughout our community here, a lot of our counseling is housed with what we call our resource partners. So our small business development centers, we have 2 here in East Baton Rouge Parish, one at Southern University and one at Louisiana State University. And LSU was announced earlier this year as the lead center for the Small Business Development Center Network. So all of the operations, the outreach housed with LSU, and then they disperse the policies out throughout the other small business development centers. We have women's business centers, one here in Louisiana at the Urban League of Louisiana, but they service women entrepreneurs statewide. We also have a SCORE chapter, and this is very important for you all in the Baton Rouge community, because our SCORE chapter is in need of some new energy. So the Louisiana District Office has been having conversations with SCORE and the Baton Rouge Chamber. And SCORE is an organization of retired business executives that volunteer to coach small businesses. So many of you may get an invitation from us in short order as we are working to really strengthen what SCORE is doing here in the Capital Region. We also, I look at the SBA in 3 different tiers. So I talked about the counseling. You go to the Small Business Development Center if you have an idea and you are in need of a business plan, right? You are in need of help to with HR concerns. That's where you go, right? You need help with your website. You need help getting your books together so you can go to the next tier that I'll talk about is access to capital. It is my belief that access to capital can cure almost any problem that we face in the community. But way too often that access to capital has been locked out for certain communities, and this administration has made equity and getting out into the areas that have historically been underbanked a priority. And I see many of some of our SBA lenders here, some future SBA lenders that I have to come meet with as well. But we had an individual business owner that had an issue. We got on the phone, and Fidelity Bank, now that entrepreneur has the capital that she needed. So that's what we are attempting to do at the SBA to help the smallest of small business. And the third tier is our access to federal contracts. We know that we have an enormous opportunity here in our great state because of the bipartisan infrastructure law. It means absolutely nothing for small businesses if they don't have the certifications to go out there and do the work. Now, I will tell you all, we have Warren Miller, who is a senior advisor at SBA in our Office of Disaster Assistance here, who's visiting. He's high, way up high. And so don't tell people what I'm about to say. I don't want to see, even though I love my other states, I don't want to see the companies from my other 4 states coming in to do work in Louisiana. Now, I don't mind you guys, Craig, right? I don't mind you guys going to do work in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and New Mexico. So what we are doing is trying to make sure that businesses have the certifications to go out and do that work. Like I mentioned earlier, I didn't know the previous regional administrator, right? So number one, we have to get out, like Warren is here now, talking about some of the programs that we offer at SBA. Many of us, because of the 2016 flood, we probably have a teeny-weeny view of the SBA because of our homes that were damaged, right? SBA, we work not just in floods. Right now in my region, we probably have about 15 natural disasters that we are working on throughout the 5 states. So yes, hurricane season has officially started on June 1st, but our Office of Disaster Assistance has been doing a lot more. One of the things that we've been doing, we've trying to educate not only homeowners, but business owners on what you need when the unexpected occurs. Because we know in Louisiana, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. So we have been in New Orleans, in Baton Rouge, working with business owners, homeowners, so they are prepared if they need to come to the SBA for assistance, be it financial, be it consulting. We have been on the ground doing that. We have also been working with business owners to make sure that they are certified, because again, when the unexpected occurs, I don't want to see other companies from outside the state doing work in Louisiana. We want to make sure that the Louisiana businesses are ready and able to do the work. And under the leadership of Warren and his team, we've been meeting with folks in the disaster recovery space for probably the last 3 months. This is probably Warren's 3rd time in the state and in his short tenure here at the SBA, which speaks to the intention that the administration is placing on not just disaster recovery, but disaster preparedness. And it is very important for us to do that. One of the things that is vastly different, of course, FEMA and the SBA we in this weird marriage, or dating. We're probably not married. We're probably in this weird dating space where we when disasters come in, we're together, and many folks, I know it because I represented the area that was flooded, we want that FEMA grant, right? And there are things that we are working on to prolong the period in which homeowners or business owners have to make the decision to apply for an SBA loan. We are working on how to make sure that you have that plan in place for your, not only your business, but your employees, and making sure that we have the documentation. And that has been something that we are really stressing, the financial literacy. Not only will that help you after a disaster, but that also helps you when you go to Fidelity Bank to ask them for an SBA loan, because they want to make sure that you are someone that has the ability to repay. And so when I talk about that, the SBDC network is really helping us to add a financial literacy component so that when you go to that SBA lender, you are someone that they are going to take a chance on, recognizing that they have the full force of the SBA guarantee in the event of a default. I've looked at the numbers here in Louisiana, and our default rate, I'm proud of our default rate on our SBA loans. Last year, in response to COVID, the last 2 years, the SBA put out about $500 billion in recovery, from PPP to COVID idle. I apologize right now, we have some idle issues out there. Restaurant revitalization, shuttered venue operating grant. There are several restaurants in our community that many of us frequent that received help from the SBA, and I'm extremely proud of that. A couple months ago, there was an article about the new Jubans, and that way tucked in at the bottom was a mention of the SBA. And I know many of us like the new library at Jubans and the new menu that they have. The SBA played a part in making sure that Jubans was able to reopen and respond. Outside of the COVID recovery, last year in Louisiana, we had about $2.5 billion in federal contracts that went to Louisiana businesses. That's good, right? But next year I want to see 3.5. I know Craig wants to see 4.5, and I want to see more of our Louisiana businesses taking advantage of the opportunity to do business with the federal government. On last week, 2 weeks ago, I was in Houston, and since I took the job, Melinda was probably one of the first people in the media that I talked to before I resigned. It was not an easy decision for me to leave the legislature. It has been a very successful, in my opinion, career in the Louisiana legislature. And although I know the sessions were grueling, Franklin, I did go back and forth about accepting this opportunity. And about 2 weeks ago, it hit me, and I realized why I'm in this position. I talked to you all about the certifications and the access to federal contracts. And this has been something that since day one I've been asking about our different certifications. We have several different certifications. We have an 8A program that is a business development program. We have certifications for women-owned small business, veteran-owned small business, service-disabled veteran small business, small disadvantaged businesses, and a lot of those certifications, we hear a lot about DBE certifications. Those are great for local and state. It doesn't help you on a federal level. So we are trying to push certifications. We've had Get Certified days all across the state to make sure that small businesses are ready. 2 weeks ago when we were in Houston, I saw a slide that talked about the percentages of contracts throughout the country. 50% of all contracts that are going to small disadvantaged businesses, 50% of those have only been going to 35 congressional districts. There are 437, I believe, congressional districts. So as I'm looking at the map, there were red indicated the areas with the highest concentration of contracts. There were no red areas in the state of Louisiana, right? In Texas, there was one little teeny spot in San Antonio. New Mexico, there was one spot. Oklahoma, there was a teeny weeny sliver up in, I believe, the Tulsa area. In Arkansas, like Louisiana, had no red. So now I'm encouraged, and I understand my charge, and I understand why I am placed in this position, because next year I want to see some red for Louisiana. And we have an enormous opportunity because of the bipartisan infrastructure law. And I think that it is largely important that we talk about it, because right now I don't have to tell you how hard it is to get a resolution to say happy birthday passed in Congress. So for us to pass a multi-trillion-dollar economic development infrastructure package, it is huge. And because of the leadership of Senator Cassidy, who was a leader in making it happen, because of the placement of Deirdre Roberts, who is at USDA, because of the work of Cedric Richmond, Mitch Landrieu, myself, we as a state, normally Louisiana is not looked at during presidential politics. We know that. In this administration, we have an opportunity to really do some good. And it doesn't matter who you voted for. It doesn't matter. Because when I go into small business, I don't ask the owner his party affiliation. I just go and support. And as we talk about the small business administration, it was extremely important for me to go to an agency where we weren't doing as much fighting as we have traditionally done in the legislature, because nobody's going to fight about how important it is to strengthen the small business community. So it is, but it's also challenges, as we talked about with the level of contracts that are coming to the state of Louisiana. So what are we doing about it? Number one, we recognize that, and I say this multiple times, you're going to get tired. My staff in the 10 district offices, they get tired of me saying that I never met the regional administrator and I didn't know what was going on in the SBA, because they take offense to it. But I don't say it to be offensive. I just say it recognizing that we have a golden opportunity. I think the SBA is probably the best kept secret in government, and we have to make sure that people know. So what are we doing about it as an administration? The statutory goal for contracts going to small disadvantaged businesses is 5%. The president signed an executive order to increase it to 11 during this fiscal year. We've already surpassed 11%, and up to 25 before the end of the term. I think that we are well on the way to satisfy that goal. I would hope that the Congress would make it statutory, but in the time that we have, we are working in that regard. We have a multi-million-dollar, almost $100 million community navigator program that was implemented last year, where we are now working with organizations in the underserved community that have a better connection with those folks in that community to get SBA resources in their lap. We have agreements with the Hispanic chambers across the country, Asian chambers, Black chambers, the Urban League, faith-based organizations. We have 51 hub organizations with multiple spokes all throughout the country that are helping us get the word out about the SBA and our products. On the lending side, we have a community advantage lending program. The community advantage lending program is for what we call mission-based lenders. So you are a lender. I am specifically interested in increasing opportunities in rural areas, mission-based, with women-owned companies, with companies of color. We had a program that was established under President Obama that we've reestablished now with our community advantage program, and it's very important because it does several things. Number one, there was a moratorium that stopped the entry of new community advantage lenders. That moratorium has been lifted. So we are now recruiting, and this is not in competition with the Fidelities of the world, right? This is to add more into the ecosystem because, again, we recognize what access to capital means for our community. We've closed that loophole so more lenders could come on. We've increased the amount from $250,000 to $350,000. We have stopped the barring of certain individuals that had experiences with the criminal legal system from being able to have access to capital. Again, recognizing that we have a charge to make sure that those that have been previously unbanked or unbankable have access to opportunities for capital. As your regional administrator, a lot of what I am charged with doing, meeting with lenders who have not been SBA lenders before. I've met with our SBA lenders several times, and most of them will tell you my message to those folks is simple. You did 20 loans last year, we need you to do 40 this year, right? For our lenders that worked with the PPP program, if you haven't worked with traditional SBA lending, we are trying to pull those into the fold because we have numerous different lending opportunities. We have 7A loans, 504 loans. I'm not going to get into the technicalities of them, but we also have micro loans that is very important to me. Those are they cap out at $50,000. This is for the smallest of small business, the guy that wants to get a new food truck, right? The restaurant that wants to build a patio because we know now the importance of having seating outside. In Louisiana, our micro lenders aren't doing too great. right? In Texas, our micro lenders outside of Dallas aren't doing too great. So a lot of my charge is to try to encourage the micro lenders to do more of the small dollar lending, to make sure that the smallest of the small have an opportunity, right? I'm also having conversations. I could talk all day about the policy that has been changed. I've done that for 10 years, right? The policies are great. We are not only working with the small business community, but we're also meeting with the federal agencies. The benefit of our 8A program, when I see a solicitation come out about a project, if there is no mention of a small business set aside, as an agency, we send a letter to say, hey, what about the small business community? What about that charge of 3% hub zone? What about that charge of making sure that 8A firms have the benefit of an opportunity? We can't say go hire Genesis 360, but we can say Genesis 360 is ready and can do the work. And a lot of my time is spent in that regard as well, pushing and reminding of the policy changes. We also have a hub zone certification, and these are for really distressed areas. Right now, the SBA changed the program so that governors can apply for additional areas to be designated as hub zones. Out of my 5 states, I can tell you all with a lot of excitement that Louisiana will likely be the first state in my region to have areas designated as hub zones, because our governor, John Bell Edwards, and our LED secretary, Don Pearson, they've already done the work to make sure that Louisiana is putting in an application. And what that does, that benefits not only the rural areas disadvantaged, but those business owners, because there are requirements that you either have to live in the hub zone as a business owner, or a large percentage of your employees must live in the hub zone. Again, making sure that we are spreading access to capital in the areas that so desperately need it. The last thing, and I don't know how good I'm doing on time, I just want to remind you all of the opportunity that we are faced with in the next 2 to 3 years, with not only what's going on locally with the Move EBR that we worked on several years ago, but with our opportunities to do business with the federal government. There's an exciting announcement coming up with the SBA and the parish of East Baton Rouge. I don't know if it's going to be next week or in a few weeks, but it will further strengthen our small business ecosystem and speak specifically to our charge and responsibility to make sure that we are empowering small businesses. I am seeing some enormous things in some of the other states that I have an opportunity to visit. I get this question a lot. I do not, I haven't moved. I still live here. My office is in Dallas. There's an office in New Orleans, but I spend most of the time in Baton Rouge Airport and in Marriott properties. So, and I will tell you all, Erica Green, who's a good friend of mine, I went to Abilene, Texas, and I showed them a video of my hotel room. So I am not in 5-star hotels, I can tell you that. The hotel that I stayed in Abilene, Texas looked like a scene from a 70s movie where they had some not so good activity going on in it. So know and rest assured that if you see me in the airport, I'm not in group 1 or 2, right? I'm probably in group 6. And at the hotels, it's not a 5-star hotel, so rest assured your tax dollars are being protected as I travel. Very, very low economy, but it has been an honor to be in this position, but really exciting to be here, communicating and sharing what we've been working on with you in my hometown. See so many friends and colleagues here. It's just an enormous opportunity. I don't know if we have time for questions, but I'm willing and able to do that. I know. Okay, cool. Questions? Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Ladies first. Can you mind? There you go.
I'm just curious, as a former lender in commercial, how do you entice the banks, the smaller banks or whoever, to do those smaller loans? Because those smaller loans typically take more time and you're not getting the bang for your buck. So
Yeah, so the question is, how do we entice the smaller banks to do the smaller loans? I'm still trying to find an answer to that. Very, very honest and candid. because I recognize that a bank is a business as well, right? So one of the things that I've tried to do is work more with the mission-based folks that their mission and they started to do that type of loan to assist that type of business. I don't have that conversation with the Fidelities and the B1s because I recognize, right? So I think that number one, I've tried to hone in on the folks that their mission is to do that type of lending and always just remind and fall back on the SBA guarantee, right? You know, there are some banks that they have a small designated portion that they're going to do, right? A lot of those conversations are happening with credit unions. And I hate to single out folks, but just to further answer the question, Pelican State Credit Union, they had a large grand opening a few months ago. I brought my little girl there, and as we were there, I started to ask about some of the small business programs. They have a program that's very similar to our SBA program. So for me, even if it's not an SBA product, I'm still pushing folks there to make sure, because not only are they lending, but they have an opportunity where they are putting folks through credit management to make sure if you come on day one and you're not ready, by 4 or 5 months in the program, you may be ready. So focusing a lot on those areas as well. Yes, sir.
You mentioned a lot of good things about access to capital, but if you look around, everybody's trying to hire people, and they're not getting anybody. Do you have a role to play in nurturing employees, or businesses to have access to new employees?
That is probably outside of inflation and gas. That's the third thing that I hear as a major concern. And I'll tell you, we're suffering from it as an agency as well. With our call center, we had a lot of folks that were temporary, and we're losing employees every day. I will tell you that I try to focus more on what the products that we have that could be beneficial. Those are some challenges that I hear, but in this role, very little that I can do in that regard, outside of trying to make sure that the businesses have the capital to be able to grow or scale up. Yes, sir.
Kind of on that same note, I know you're over a large area, but for people here locally who want to connect with the SBA, can you tell us a little bit
Yes.
about our local SBA?
Yep, that's a great question. So the Louisiana District Office is based in New Orleans on Poydras Street. Every SBA office is set up. We have a district director and a deputy district director. Then we have a lender relations team, a business opportunity team, and we have some outreach and marketing specialists. I will email to whomever a link so that you can, I would say the first thing, sign up for alerts from the Louisiana District Office, right? My email, I have a stack of cards here. I just got my cards about 6 weeks ago, so I'm excited to give them out. My email is ted.james@sba.gov. Email me and I can, if it's a lending question, if it's a certification question, we can put you in contact with either the Louisiana District Office or the Small Business Development Center, depending on where you are in your business journey.
And one more follow-up question. In what case might it still make sense for somebody with good credit and a fair access to capital to still talk to the SBA?
I think that is the guarantee. I think that we have more competitive interest rates. I will tell you, I think the process, and sometimes in the example that I talked about earlier, sometimes you may go to a lender and they may find a product that is not an SBA product. So I think that the benefit of what the relationship with the district office, they are going to really sit down and really look at where you're trying to go, what your books look like, and they can educate you on the best. And we know right now you could go to the SBA website and there's a lender match. You could go and you will be connected with a lender. I think it's a great tool. For me, I would much rather you contact the Louisiana District Office so they can match you with a lender that you know, right? A lender that may be in this room, right? It's a great tool. Not saying anything negative about it, Warren, but the district office can connect you with someone that knows. You're in this industry, we know which lender favors that type of client. Yes, ma'am. And then Tom.
Yes, Mr. James, thank you so much for your service. I appreciate you. Heather McGee wrote the book, The Sum of Us, What Racism Has Cost All of Us and How We Might Prosper Together. I'm going to send you that book.
Okay.
She's a Harvard-trained economist. She's not talking about the lack of connection in any other way other than economics.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that we can all hear. It's not
Yeah.
racism about the head and the heart.
Got you.
I would like to find out from you, how are you
That's right.
There's no park. Our resource partners want to do good work,
Mhm.
but our small businesses need to get there for economic justice for every community. So
Yep.
I'm going to send you that book,
Yep.
Heather McGee, The Sum of Us, What Racism Has Cost All of Us and How We Might Prosper Together.
I will tell you, and I'm going to my notes because I'm going to forget the list. I mentioned the resource partners, and this is, I'll talk globally and then bring it back home. The women's business centers. Right now, since I've been in, we have probably opened at least 5 or 6 at HBCUs. That was a major solicitation that went out for historically African American serving institutions to apply to host the WBC. I was mad Southern didn't get it, or Grambling, but I recognize that we already have SBDCs in our university. So number one, I think that is globally what we're doing to try to address that, to make sure that we have opportunities in trusted sources, right? You know, some folks feel a lot more comfortable going to LSU or Southern than going to a governmental entity. I get it, I recognize it, and that's why we're trying to pump in. In regards to our higher education community here, we have an enormous opportunity coming up in a few weeks with this big football game between LSU and Southern. And there's an SBA component that I can't announce yet, where we are going to, number one, start, and we do real good about doing events here, but not a real follow through. So this will be the start of a connection to really try to bring those resources to the higher ed community coming the week of the game. Yes, sir, Todd.
I think a lot of people have heard that term microloan, but what is the range of a microloan?
For it's 0 to 50,000. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Last one.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. You talked about financial literacy, and when we did polls on this, one of the confusing things was if you got a FEMA loan, maybe this would disqualify you for SBA. There seems to be a lot of confusion about that.
Warren, I'm just playing. So one of the things, and that was probably maybe a question that I asked maybe my second week, because the second thing that the third thing, congratulations, what you're doing, and when are we gonna get our 2016 flood loans forgiven? That was a lot of the questions. So the FEMA process, FEMA is designed to not get you whole, but to get you comfortable, right, with the grant process. And when I talked about some of the changes that we are looking to implement in ODA, I believe there's a recognition of the confusion there. So that's why Warren is here, and we've been on the ground trying to make sure that folks know. I have been contacted about 20 churches that are still trying to get IDA assistance, and there were a lot of mistakes made, and I think that they were made because the information just wasn't there in time. So we are, number one, trying to make sure the information is there, because there are some things that are statutory that in my short time at the SBA I probably won't be able to fix. But there are some things that we can do, and we're working on making the process a little less cumbersome, but it is government, right? But the SBA loan piece, one of the things is giving folks more time to be able to make that decision, right? As you're going through with FEMA and sending them information and the clock is running for SBA, you may be in a situation where you're locked out of all opportunities. So we recognize that and are trying to work on it. And one of the things, another thing that I want to mention, especially, as we talk about the higher ed community, we made a MOU we signed last week with the National Panhandling Council. So the SBA will be at all of these different conventions working on financial literacy, access to capital, and we're doing the same things with other organizations here, the Hispanic Chamber and other groups, to make sure that we address some of the issues that you all talked about. Thank you so much.